Today we have a special guest, Cindy Papale. She's not only the author of the book, The Empty Cup Runneth Over, she's also a breast cancer survivor. And we also have Michael Colanero, who is an artist, photographer, and owner of Uncommon Gallery. Thank you so much for being here today, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Cindy, tell us a little bit about your book. What inspired you to write it?
Well, actually, a year and a half after my diagnosis after breast cancer, I was invited to speak at a college at the University of Miami psychology class. And that inspired me the most because a lot of the women and men didn't know too much about breast cancer. So after I spoke at the college, I began speaking to high schools and colleges all over Miami-Dade County. And I came up with the idea of putting an easy-to-read guidebook together.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great because, you know, reminiscing about school, we never had any kind of program in our school that educated us or even talked about breast cancer. When did you begin the process of writing the book? What was involved in that?
Well, it was very challenging writing The Empty Cup Runneth Over because I had to, the book has two themes. It has 15 doctors that actually contributed chapters, and we have other survivor stories. We also have a fantastic nutrition chapter in there by Sabrina Hernandez, my co-author, who unfortunately couldn't be here today to join us. But the book, the educational chapters from the doctors were very challenging to write because I had to work around their schedule. Many of them are surgeons, and they're in the operating room a lot. So I had to basically work around their time. The young survivors that are in there are amazing young women in their mid to early 20s, and their stories are all inspiring. And we do have one amazing journal in there from a 22-year-old, Christy Lash, who unfortunately lost her battle at the age of 26. And her story she shares from the day she was diagnosed until the day that she had unfortunately lost her battle.
That's very young. When do most women, I mean, what's the average age that women are diagnosed with breast cancer?
It's not as common as a lot of people think of young women developing breast cancer. The important thing is awareness. Awareness, and then of course self-breast examination. That is what we like to really inspire women mostly about awareness, getting to know their body, examining their breasts. A lot of women today, we're finding their own breast lumps because of that, of examining their breasts, or actually from awareness and going to conferences and lectures, and just from mostly awareness.
Yes, and ever since I started reading your book, and I got the opportunity to get all the way through it, and I got so educated with it, and I really wasn't aware. So, you know, there's a lot of young women that aren't prepared for breast cancer. They're not even thinking about it. So,
well, because in high school and in colleges, everybody's having fun, and you really don't think about breast cancer unless a loved one or someone close in your family has developed breast cancer. October is Breast Cancer Month, but for all breast cancer survivors, it's every month. So during the month of October is when a lot of the activity and a lot of awareness is brought more to light, and a lot of the young, of course, become involved in the Komen races. They become involved in the Avon races. So it's more known, more popular in October. But again, for us survivors, it's every month.
Now, how did you and Michael actually meet up? What's the story there?
I'll let Michael share that.
We met through some mutual friends, and actually we it's kind of just a matter of circumstance, I guess, and she was interested in some of my work, and I'm an artist and photographer, so she was interested in what I was doing, and in that process she came across a body painting piece that I had photographed, and she had expressed an interest in something like that for herself, but had reservations due to the fact that she's a breast cancer survivor and her reconstruction, and she hadn't had any nipple reconstruction, and she was concerned with some of the scars and just body issues in general of having a double mastectomy, or 2 single mastectomies, I should say. And I tried to come up with a theme that maybe would allow her to do something like that and find something in herself outside of her boundaries that would relate to breast cancer. And as soon as I kind of came up with a theme that related to breast cancer, she just jumped right on board.
So you've done a few paintings like this where it's actual body painting, and then you take a photo of it?
Correct. We do individualized themes for each of the women, each of the breast cancer survivors that are part of the project so far. Cindy is what I call the lead model and the project cornerstone. And I call her that because having just the idea of doing a body painting of breast cancer survivors kind of left different tastes in different people's mouths. And so once I had an actual image to show them what the concept was, then they were able to understand it much better and understand it for awareness and fundraising.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And that's actually Cindy.
That's Cindy's,
And that's
yeah.
after Reconstruction.
Yes, that is actually 7 years after Reconstruction, 8 years mostly. But the interesting part is where the bow is on that left side is where my breast cancer originally was. The bow, actually when I was being body painted, I went through a gamut of emotions because I flashed back to the day that I was wheeled into the operating room. I flashed back to the day that first I had the left breast removed, then I electively, prophylactically chose to have the right breast removed. That was a very challenging decision to make, one that most women do not make because, you know, body image is a personal thing. For me, I was afraid of getting cancer in that breast, but more importantly, I had another abnormal mammogram with calcifications, and I was afraid that I would have a recurrence in the opposite breast. So 3 months later, I went back into the operating room, and I chose to have the breast removed, the right breast. So as I was being body painted here, and this is called Ribbon in the Sky, that Michael Colanero actually named, and it's such a beautiful piece, and every time I look at it, I still takes me back to the day I was wheeled into the operating room and going through treatment, but it's a beautiful piece. I'm very happy that I did do it. I had reservations, but thanks to Michael, that actually, who inspired me the most to actually have this done, I was very happy.
I know that you had experience prior to being diagnosed with breast cancer. You were already working in that field, working with patients who had breast cancer.
Yes, coincidentally, I worked for a breast surgeon at the University of Miami for 11 years. So when I was diagnosed with an abnormal mammogram and then an abnormal biopsy confirming that I heard the words for the first time, your biopsy is positive for breast cancer, the first thing that ran through my mind was, how bad do I have it? Then I thought, am I going to die? Where most women would think, oh my God, I'm going to die. Because I knew that there were different stages to breast cancer, and I wasn't quite sure how bad my breast cancer was. So I had a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, a lot of reservations. And then I knew that I had to go through treatment. I had to go through process of, first I initially went through a lumpectomy. And what that is just removal of the area that has the lump or the calcification.
Rather than the whole breast.
Well, right. What happened before I made that decision was the doctor called me and told me that my margins were not clear. And what that means is that there was more cancer in the breast. So therefore, I had to have a modified radical mastectomy. I know that sounds like a whole big word, but that's basically removal of the entire breast, including the nipple.
Now, when you first found out all this information, did they give you any options? Was there treatment that was available to avoid any of that, or is it once it's a certain size?
Well, I had what is called microcalcifications, which is little tiny spots, and I've always had them, but sometimes microcalcifications can turn suspicious and positive, which is what happened to me. The only option, because I didn't have clean margins, again, more cancer around most of the breast, into the breast tissue, breaking out of the duct into the whole tissue, was the only option was to remove the entire breast.
It must have been really hard.
It was very difficult because I was married at the time. I didn't know how my husband would feel, you know, removing a breast and not feeling like a woman, and then feeling lopsided. I really wanted to have the right removed at the same time, but at the suggestion and recommendation of my surgeon was to wait and hold off.
And that's what you did? You waited.
And that's what I did. I waited 3 months, and then I had the mammogram. And then the mammogram actually was abnormal, or suspicious, I should say. So I electively chose to have the right breast off, and I was very fortunate that there was no